See, I thought I'd start tonight's show off by pissing off Bob, and I did a good job because I woke him up. I brought up stuff that he's got going on off camera, and yeah, I got him going. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with Bob Rose, the angry Bob Rose, who's going to be good tonight. Uh, you know, and it's fitting that we start the show off like this because today Dennis Allen met with the media. They're in Orlando for the owners' meeting. Dennis Allen met with the media, and he had some things to say. Not anything in depth, not anything great. It was just about, hey, we expect a lot of good things out of Chase Young. We expect a lot of good things out of Gay. We expect a lot of good things, period. And this is, you expect that. Then near the end of the interview, it's about a 40-minute interview, 40-minute interview. Near the end of the interview, someone asked him about Ryan Ramczyk. And he said, I'm not as optimistic as I was during the combine. He's had the surgery and he's not recovering the way, or I shouldn't say not recovering. He's not at the point where we hoped he would be. And he said, I think Ryan's disappointed. We're disappointed. And that segment, I think one of your fellow writers, John Hendricks, tweeted about this. That kind of set off Saints X profiles. That Ryan Ramczyk, who has a degenerative knee condition, probably is in really bad shape, and may or may not be able to play by the start of the season this year. So you add that with the whole Penning debacle and what are we going to do at left tackle? We probably are going to need a right tackle too. So I know you got draft profiles in your hopper. That's what sets you off. But is it seem more and more likely now, given the Chase Young signing, and we'll talk a little bit more about his health status, but given the Chase Young signing, that looks like 14 and maybe 45 could be left and right tackles that they draft?
Alan, I think the first round for sure. Now you never know the way the board is going to fall. If the top 4 or 5 tackles come flying off the board in the top 10 or 12 picks, and I don't think they will. But if they do, then the Saints are going to have to scramble and revamp their strategy, obviously. But not only the Trevor Penning fiasco, but as you mentioned, as we've talked about, several times on this show, and Brendan and I on the Bayou Blitz, Ramczyk just doesn't look right. And, we knew about his knee, we knew about his worsening knee condition, and that raising questions about his long-term health and future. Well, the long-term apparently is here. And also the fact that, remember, Andrus Peat wasn't re-signed either. Now, he's still out there on the open market, so it's a possibility. It wouldn't surprise me if the Saints drafted tackles in their first, 2 rounds or in 2 of their first 3 picks or some scenario like that. But I think it's just about a slam dunk that they do so in the first round. You have to at this point. We talked about the Chase Young signing, being kind of a window into into what the Saints draft strategy is going to be. I think that this just further solidifies it. Now, fortunately, offensive tackle, in my opinion, is the deepest of any position in this draft class. At least based off of what not only I've scouted, but hearing several national scouts kind of echo that sentiment. So New Orleans will have the opportunity to get 1, perhaps 2 tackles, a second one a little bit later, sometime in day 2 of the draft. But I think it's a slam dunk they do so in the first round. You have to, right?
Yeah. Brock Bowers is still my fantasy, but it's looking more and more like that's what's going to happen. That they just simply And yeah, we're going to talk about this too. I want to get into this as well, but this was just stuff that I saw today. It you can't put your eggs in the penny basket. And man, yeah, you could probably sign Andres Pete because he's not getting very much interest in the free agent market, which I didn't expect he would.
Right.
Um, so you could bring him back as one of your tackles as you. Oh, look at Brian Mitchell right there. As one of your tackles, you may want to invest in just as a veteran depth piece, emergency starter if your rookies aren't ready yet. But and you can't rely on Penning. So you're really in the shape of we've got to do this. We've got to do this. Um, you know, I love the idea of Dallas Turner. Um, we as we talked about with Chase Young's injury last week. Um, you can't put your eggs in Chase Young's basket. When we
Mhm.
talked about, we didn't really mention much about Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan apparently had surgery on his the high ankle and low ankle,
Yeah.
and they said he was dragging that foot. But they were also saying that at Cam's age, then you're probably also looking at possibly having to have a guy just be a two down guy, run down, and maybe take him off the field or to save him for later on.
Hmm.
Take him off the field, certain pass rush situations, and save him for a more, I don't know, a much more critical game where you need that pass rush, um, that kind of stuff. Um, you know, they've changed the medical staff before. They changed it from back in I don't know if you can see that or not, Bob. Hemisphere is asking, he knows injuries are part of the game, but wanted to know it's the same since it's the same players like Lattimore and other players who are always missing games. Does he look at medical staff changes? You had that whole issue with the bone bruise misdiagnosis of Devin Breaux,
Yeah.
where it turned out to be a broken leg. Um, uh, I can't think of it. West Bank, the cornerback, Keenan Lewis. Keenan
Hmm.
Lewis having issues. Um, Going back even further with Jerry's Bird, his back, and everything else. eh, they did replace all the doctors on the staff, and they've got a whole new medical team. Um, so I don't know if it's so much that as because the issues they're having are joint related issues,
Hmm.
not so much deep tissue issues. We've talked about this before, Bob, but give me your take on some of the injuries. And is it a medical staff problem? Because Ramczyk, like we said, that was a degenerative knee condition. That's not anything that's done by trainers. That's arthritic knees. And he's almost at the point of bone rubbing against bone. And
Yeah.
that's genetic more than football related.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Anything degenerative, as you know, Alan, is more of a genetic thing and cannot be blamed on current medical staff. But yeah, there's been issues with Cam Jordan the last 2 years now. We knew about Marshawn Lattimore,
Mhm.
not so much last year. Last year, I think people have a right to question Marshawn Lattimore after last year, but the year before with the abdominal injury, things like that. Um, it it's easy for us to sit here and doubt the medical staff when you don't have any medical expertise, and even if you do, you're not the one examining the player, you are not the one at the team facility, and things like that. And but I get the fans frustration, I do. But like you said, Alan, they've changed medical personnel, and that was a wide sweeping change, probably because they were facing some lawsuits. We know that they were facing some potential legal issues with Delvin Breaux, and rightfully so. That staff should have been, handed their heads, and pink slips, in due short order. But the current medical staff, it's tough to evaluate, for the reasons that you just mentioned and for the reasons that I echoed. And in Ramczyk's case, it is since it is degenerative, you can't blame that on the medical personnel. In Cam's case, that's a almost 35-year-old body that's taking a ton of pounding. Injuries, physical issues are going to start to mount. I don't care what kind of medical personnel that you have. And other players. I mean, this is football, and whether Roger Goodell wants to admit it or not, it's still a physical sport, or at least most players want it to be a physical sport. Mm-hmm. So, again, injuries, medical issues are going to crop up. You can't always blame the medical personnel, or you can't always blame player X or player Y for being soft. This is just the nature of the game. And remember that this Saints team, it's a veteran team. Ramczyk been around since 2017, and again, playing a position that takes a tremendous amount of physical pounding, especially on the knees. If you ever met, you and I have, Alan, but if you've ever met a retired offensive or defensive lineman, almost without exception, those guys look like it's just painful for them to walk across a room, and there's a reason for that. Ryan Ramczyk is a little bit on the extreme, end of the scale. Anytime you talk about a condition where you literally have a joint deteriorating, physically deteriorating. We knew about this issue 2 years ago. A few of us in the media knew about it behind closed doors, that it was a brewing issue. And the Saints were, I remember back 2 seasons ago, Dennis Allen's first year, midway through the year, we were kind of getting rumblings, that the Saints were hoping to get another 2 to 3 healthy years out of Ramczyk, but would have been surprised if they got it. Well, I mean, here we are, and again, that's not an issue you can blame on the medical staff.
Yeah, and that was something that's really unfortunate, and again, bombing on or whiffing on so many draft picks really has come back to hurt this team, because in an ideal world, a guy like Ryan Ramczyk, his age, now you're looking at, okay, well, we drafted Trevor Penning. We could slide him to the right side, but you don't know what you have with Penning right now. Or, hey, we got, I don't know, let's Landon Young or Rick Leonard. That was a guy who was a huge bust in the 4th round. Those are guys that you would think, okay, we're going to lose Ramczyk, but we got some people who probably come in and take his place. Well, we don't have that right now, because you've whiffed on so many draft picks, especially offensive linemen. And that's really what's hurting this team. I still think Penning's future is going to be on the right side. I think this is where if Ramczyk isn't going to be ready for training camp, and if Ramczyk is a kind of guy that's probably going to get demoted to 3rd tackle, just because of his health issues, he's going to try and tough it out and play one more year. Then he probably becomes the 3rd tackle, and then you're playing someone like Penning probably on the right side and the 1st round draft pick on the left side. So I think that's a scary proposition, because you really don't want to have to do that. You don't want to put your eggs in the Penning basket again. You got burned the last time you did it. You really would like to have a veteran guy back there that you could trust. you know.
Right.
Um,
Well, that too, Alan, and
so
you're talking about flipping Penning, to a side of the offensive line that he really hasn't played before. And I agree, just his body type and his playing style is more suited to the right side anyway. But now you're asking him to learn a completely new position. And you and I have gotten to know Kyle Turley very well. And Kyle will make no bones about it. And we've asked him because he was a Pro Bowler at both right side and left side. When we asked him what it was like, and how simple, how complicated the change was, he literally looked us in the eye and said, "It's like asking a right-handed person to take a test left-handed without any warning." Um,
yeah,
only now you're taking on those battles with your entire body. So with that, my question to you is, do you try out Penning on the right side as you suggested and focus on a left tackle in this draft, or do you try and keep your fingers crossed that Penning is going to work out? Maybe you bring back Pete and you focus on a right tackle in this draft, because there's a few, like for example, Fashanu, Joe Alt, the two top-rated tackles, they're left tackles.
mhm.
Fuaga from Oregon State, Latham from Alabama, Mims from Georgia, they're right tackles. So you get you get the direction I'm going here.
Yeah. I think you draft a left tackle because part of Penning's problem was dealing. He was thinking so much in dealing with speed rushers. The best pass rusher on every team generally comes from the right side or the your left tackle side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yes, you have your TJ Watts, you have a couple other people that you move around, but when you're talking about week after week after week, you're facing that. That's what Cam plays. Your best pass rushers on playing against the left tackle. That's where you really want to have your best offensive lineman. Go back to the blind side, and what does Sandra Bullock say in that opener when they show the compound fracture of Joe Theismann when Lawrence Taylor crushes him? Talking about how important the left tackle was, the blind side for a quarterback. And since quarterbacks are right-handed, that is the side you wanted. In fact, Ricky Jackson used to talk about that. He said, part of the thing about Pat Swilling getting all these sacks used to bug him because, in a friendly way, of course, because they're competing against each other. But Ricky Jackson said, yeah, Pat's coming from the blind side. They don't see him coming. They see me coming, so it's harder for me to get to the guy because he sees me coming right at him. So, yeah, I think Penning learning the position, I think he'd be better on the right side right now. Getting just used to getting his confidence back because he's got the physical skills, but it's a confidence issue for him. And getting his confidence back, having him dominate a guy that he's up against, probably will have that. You could run the ball on that side a lot more. I think those are the kind of things that will help him become the player we wanted him to be when we drafted him. I just feel like you got to get somebody who's a sure thing on that left side. You got to get somebody who's ready to start on day one, and you can just drop him in there. I don't even know, Calvin. I don't know if he is still available. Free agency's kind of slowed to a crawl now, which is what I expect because I think come next week, it's all about the draft now.
Yeah.
April, the calendar turns to April. These teams are going to be looking at pro days. They're going to be looking in the draft. The next wave of free agency really is going to start after the draft when they see what they've missed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and you're bringing in guys around mini camp, or you're right after mini camp. Once you see, okay, my rookies aren't as far along as what I thought they were going to be. I want to bring in a veteran at this spot or that spot before training camp. And Calvin, I am pretty sure Mekhi Becton got signed by the Cincinnati Bengals. If I'm not mistaken, your tackle options in free agency right now. David Bakhtiari, Dwayne Brown, Donovan Smith, and Andrus Peat. So you're talking the senior citizens tour of football players here, really.
Yeah, and the kid from the Packers, Bakhtiari, is that how you say his name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's been battling injuries for the past 3 years, so you're dealing with
Right.
somebody you don't know how healthy he's going to be. He's somebody that you might be able to use, but don't know. Connor Williams, is that what Connor Williams still available?
Hold on.
I'm not sure.
Connor is. There's actually quite a few decent guards out there. Connor Williams, Laken Tomlinson, Dalton Risner, Trey Turner, who I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints brought him back. He should be relatively cheap. Gabe Jackson, Mark Lewinsky. Again, not that entire list isn't exactly littered with perennial Pro Bowlers, but guys that have been quality starters in this league. Probably more reliable solutions than the tackles that we just mentioned that are still available.
Okay, so Matt's saying Becton has not been signed. So good. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that in the safety market, both are just wide open right now. And I think the Saints probably look at bringing a safety in after the draft. I think they're thinking they can probably draft a safety because they know the market's pretty dead. And there'll be good players available after the draft. Because I do think they need a veteran safety back there. That's
Agreed.
Veteran offensive lineman, veteran safety. Those are the positions I'm looking at. Speaking of Delvin Breaux, this is the game that Delvin Breaux could not cover a rub route to save his life.
Yeah.
The highest scoring game, second highest scoring game in Saints history. Drew Brees, this is a 7 touchdown game. This is when he sets the franchise record for 7 TD passes from 2015. What a wild game. God.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so speaking of free agents and spending money and drafting, so Mickey Loomis got interviewed the other day, Monday night or Monday afternoon, about free agency and their approach to free agency and how different it's been. And he pretty much confirmed that they are going through a system now where they're going to, and he was talking 2 years now, where they're going to be more restrained with spending money and signing guys to short-term deals and straighten out their cap issues. So it begs the question, are they in to win? Are they in to be competitive? Or what are they going to do? Bob, your take on that?
Man, I'm not sure they know. Yeah, I'm not sure they know. I still know for a fact that they believe that they can win the NFC South, that they are the best of that foursome of teams. And we also know we all know for a fact that they aren't willing yet to blow everything up. Take your lumps in the salary cap, part with your veterans, get bargain basement free agent people that shouldn't be playing in the league at all. Try to. I'm not going to say the word tank, but not concern yourself with winning games. Because you're trying to stockpile draft picks, bring in a new, young, unproven coach. We know that the Saints aren't willing to go down that route, at least not yet. If they were, Dennis Allen wouldn't be here, and the Saints would have done a Russell Wilson with Derek Carr, and they're not willing to do that. And I do think it's interesting that Mickey Loomis did specify 2 years, because the way they redid Cam Jordan's contract, 2 years, the way they redid Demario Davis's contract, 2 years, Tyrann Mathieu' contract, 2 years. Even the restructure with Derek Carr, you're only taking a big financial hit for the next 2 years. So, it does tell me that It does tell me that they're at least having beliefs that they can make a run for the NFC South title by keeping Cam, Demario, and those guys around. And like we always say, all you need to do is get into the playoffs. And if you get a couple matchups that work in your favor, all of a sudden you're competing for a Super Bowl trip. So they might view it that way. They might very well view it that way. And I do think that Mickey Loomis wasn't lying when he said that they were going to be more thrifty, shall we call it, with their spending,
Yeah.
because we haven't seen that this year. With the Willie Gay signing, even with the Chase Young signing, we all wish that those were 2-year contracts. Rather than 1 year, but they've at least set themselves up in a position, where you and I speculated on this even at the time. If Willie Gay and/or Chase Young is playing really, really well out of the gate, to start next season, their reps can always sit down with these guys and try to hammer out another year or two extension, since both those guys are still very young. Potential pieces to retooling, a roster run. So I do think that offered some insight, into what their free agent strategy offered some insight and backed up what Mickey Loomis's comments were at the owners' meeting.
Yeah, and keep in mind, my attitude about this is, think of Loomis as a party guy, and you invited him to come out, and he says, "Okay, I'm gonna have one drink because I'm trying to cut back," and he starts having a good time, and that one drink becomes 3 or 4 or 6 or 10 or whatever, and suddenly he's
I
coming
was
back
that
home at
guy,
2 in the
Alan.
morning. Yeah, I'm thinking you'd appreciate that analogy. But yeah, let's just say, for the sake of argument, the Saints do make a run. They win like 7 or 10 games in a row. Stop laughing. But they win 7 or 10 games in a row, and they win the NFC South. They get a pretty high seed, at least a 3 seed. And they suddenly start advancing, and they feel like they're real close because they had a slam dunk draft class like in 2017. Then all those plans go out the window, and now suddenly, and you mentioned Chase Young and Gay having good years. Suddenly now you're paying these guys more, and you're going to try and make that run again. So their plan right now is to clean up the cap and get younger on this roster and get better players, and don't be. I will be surprised if they are aggressive in this draft. I think they're going to let this draft come to them. I expect them to sort of. I'm not going to say trade down, because I don't know if they know how to trade down.
Right.
But to make moves, I would not be surprised to see them trade a future pick to get into the 3rd round, for example.
I expect it. But they have 4 5th-round picks, so I expect it.
Package some 5th-round picks to move into the 3rd round to get someone, especially if they see somebody they really like in that 3rd round, because this team does have a lot of holes in it. So yeah, they're going to say that we're going to retool, but we're going to be competitive. We're going to do these things and try and still, do what we want to do and win. But if things start coming in our favor, we're not going to sit there and say, "Oh, no, take a foot off the gas. We don't want to. We don't want to win that many games." They'll never do that.
Right.
They'll never do that. I know. I would love for him to trade down, Calvin. I don't know if it's possible. I did my first ever mock draft, and I made 4 trades, and all 4 were to trade down, and I ended up with 12 total picks. It was funny too, because the trades I was getting offered, it's like, okay, move down 1 slot and pick up an extra 5th. Boom, done. Move down 4 slots and you get a 4th round pick. Boom, done. So I got 12 picks, and I got a good draft, I thought. But Yeah, that is what he's saying. Yeah, I know. Laugh out loud, trading down. Yeah, I don't know if he's got it in him. I really don't think he does, but we'll see. Um, okay, so Anna wanted to talk about this tonight, and I kind of want. There's more things I want to talk about as far as the players, but I really want to address these two things. The owners have passed some new rules, and one of them, I think, when I read it, and they said it's going to be up to the officials to determine what constitutes uh, the hip drag tackle. I'm like, oh joy, more picks, more penalties being decided by an official. Who wants to bet that on third and long, deep in your own end zone, with a score that's 2 points, that suddenly now a flag comes out for an illegal roughing the tackle runner tackle because you did that hip draw tackle down to give a 15-yard first down. Oh boy, that drive is still alive. Bob, what is your take on this? I mean, I'm having a hard time just understanding. I mean, I know what it is, but understanding how they're going to know what to call. How do they decide to call that a penalty on this drag by the hip tackle?
You see the look on my face? That should,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know.
Just like most things have regressed in the corrupt Goodell regime, it's going to mainly depend on the team or teams involved, what players are involved, specific situations, and perhaps specific times of year, just like anything else in the Goodell regime.
Yeah.
Because when you leave it up to officials' discretions, we're going to hear the same goddamn thing every single week. One side is going to say, "Wow, we need full-time officials, and the officials need to be schooled better on the rules." No, because that's not what Goodell wants. This is what Goodell wants: debating, higher scoring, and the officials to have an even greater impact on the outcome of games involving the Patrick Mahomeses, and when Tom Brady played, the Tom Bradys, and the Lamar Jacksons and players like that of the world. It's beyond sickening. I know a lot of the people are making the comments like, just give them give them flags and make it flag football. And I mean, yeah, to some extent, that's the direction that we're headed. But it's not that Goodell doesn't give two shits about player safety. He wants, he doesn't give two shits about the integrity of the shield. He does give plenty of shits about protecting the legalities of the shield from potential lawsuits. That's why all the rhetoric about player safety. But again, the reality is, scoring goes up. Fantasy football becomes more interesting, and the discussions can further commence about, is Kansas City the next greatest dynasty? Is Patrick Mahomes the current greatest player of all time? The next greatest player of all time. We got to protect them too. We got to help them make them look good. It's all bullshit to me, all of it.
Well, part of the reason why I'm showing these, y'all saw the Joe Horn cell phone game 45-7. This game here is the shootout, 52 to 49, I think was the final score.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Goodell wants right here, because the outcome was really in doubt until late in the game. Okay. Lot of points scored. A lot of yardage. I think 1,000 yards total offense. But over 1,000 yards total offense from these two teams. That's a lot of fantasy football. Gambling, A lot of people gambling on not in this game because gambling wasn't legal, and of course we all know that no one was gambling back then because gambling was illegal, and the fact that we said that the point total could be 40 something and we give you someone in the points, that's just purely for educational
Enter,
purposes. That's not
enter,
you actually gambling.
entertainment purposes only. We do not condone gambling. We do not support it, and we do not believe that it happened on our watch. Next question.
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly. Let me ask you something. Why is Jimmy the Greek known as Jimmy the Greek, and what was he known for? He was just a prognosticator. He was never a bookie. He was never encouraging gambling. Next question. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So yeah, but I mean, you were absolutely right. They want to basically make defense almost illegal, and because they want the 6,000-yard pass or the first guy to throw for 6,000 yards.
Yep.
They want the guy to break Peyton Manning's record for most touchdowns in the season.
Yep.
They want high scoring games. They want lots of offense. Offense sells tickets. Offense gets people watching. They watch NFL Red Zone, which is nothing but offensive plays. The worst thing Roger Goodell could hear on a television broadcast is we're going to take you away from this game to a game that's far more competitive. When I was a kid, that happened all the time.
Right.
It doesn't happen anymore. They want these games to be close, the game to be decided in the final 5 minutes. They want all those things. They do not want to see games that are blowouts. They do not want to see games where teams have the division or week 12. They want division races going down to week 18. You said he doesn't give a rat's ass about player safety. You're damn right he doesn't. Because if they honestly cared about player safety, you abolish Thursday Night Football. You have 2 bye weeks during the season, and you play 16 games. But no, they're pushing for 18 games, maybe 2 bye weeks, and they'd like to get Tuesday Night Football. They'd like to have Wednesday Night Football if they could. If it wouldn't threaten high school in the South, they were on Friday Night Football. Let it go head to head with college. They don't care. Yep. They would like to have NFL every night of the week, because that's how you sell television contracts. That's how you sell streaming service contracts. That's how the league makes money. They want to grow their audiences. You and I are old school football fans. We like watching. We can deal with a 14-7 ball game, a 14-10 ball game, because if it's great defense, it's fun. If we like the strategy of the game, how do you advance the ball? How do you play field position? That's not important anymore. What's important is lots of offense and running around the football. That's 2004, Jerry. That's 2004. Trent Green's the quarterback for the Chiefs. Dick Vermeil's the head coach. Larry Johnson's not the running back. It's in this game, I think it's Blaylock was his name, and he ran all over the Saints. Oh, look, number 34, Tusucky Jones from the Saints, the safety. Fakir Brown, the running back, and it always was funny to say his name. But Fakir Brown, yeah. This was on CBS. This was a good game. The Saints, I've forgotten all about this game, and I put this one on the other day. Joe Horn has a good game in this one. So does Boo Williams. But yeah, this is a fun game. And it's funny, as we're talking about these things, Todd Christensen is the color analyst in this game. And they call a roughing the either roughing the passer call or some sort of roughing call. And Todd Christian says, "Oh, come on, this is football." It's just funny to hear those comments. Yeah, Stallworth's out there playing. So this is 2004. He's still with the Saints. His second year in the league. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So anyway, that's the story on that rule. I just see this to be a complete disaster, and it's going to drive fans crazy. The other rule they are talking about doing is this strange thing with the kickoffs, where you basically have you've outlawed the onside kick, which they didn't like the onside kick anyway. They are looking at correct me if I'm wrong on these things. Like the kickoff takes place around, or they're not even kicking the ball off, are they? They're like at the 35 or 40-yard line, and there's a landing zone where the ball goes, and they can't move until the guy picks up the ball. It's like an XFL rule. I don't understand it all the way. I tried reading about it before the show, and I don't understand how the ball ends up in the landing zone.
It's sort of it's not only basically eliminating the onside kick. It's also eliminating the live ball. Basically. That landing zone, that you're mentioning, that's similar to last year, where if a kickoff returner fair caught it inside inside the 25 or inside the 20, they still automatically got the ball at the 25. That's basically where the zone is. Only this time, instead of the returner, being able to fair catch it, which I believe they'll still be able to do. Essentially, the kick defense team, the kick coverage teams, cannot move until approximately the ball is in that zone. Even if it's in the air. So if it's in the air, again, you're talking an official judgment. Which it becomes more and more laughable. Every single rule becomes more and more laughable. Now, what if you're going to look at the positive side? There is no positive side to the previous rule spoken about. None.
Yeah.
If there's a positive side about this rule, it's if you have yourself a dynamic kick returner like a Rashid Shaheed, it's going to give them a lot more opportunities, to kick off, because even if your kicker sends it deep in the end zone, your returner is basically going to have about a 1.5 to a 2 second head start from what he had over the previous couple of years. So I think that's going to be very significant. But like you said, Goodell's hatred for the onside kick is just all but eliminated it. They are still tinkering with the rule that that a different kickoff lineup has to take place during an onside, but in that particular case, the coach has to let the officials know, hey, we're going to onside kick it, and okay, an onside kick's coming, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to line up this way instead of that way. That did not get passed this year, but they're still tinkering around with that. But outside of that, unless that happens, the onside kick is basically eliminated.
Yeah, what caught my eye was on X. I think it was Thomas Morstead. Might have been someone else who said the ambush would never happen in today's rules.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate, because when I first heard the comment or the idea, they wanted to say, well, you have to announce that you're going to do an onside kick. No more surprise onside. Well, those of you who have seen, like me, have watched NFL Films version of the Saints 2009 Super Bowl. You have seen Sean Payton walking around explaining to the officials how the onside kick is going to work, and so he does let them know this. because Sean couldn't keep a secret on that. He had to tell somebody this. But at the same time, like Super Bowl, was it Super Bowl 30 with the Steelers and the Cowboys?
Yep.
Picking that time to run an onside kick. You run an onside kick right in the beginning of the second half. In Super Bowl 30, they ran the onside kick when the Steelers finally scored their first touchdown, and they get that they get all the momentum, and Cowher's out there, let's go, and spitting and everything else, and Bam Cunningham looks at him like, this dude's friggin' nuts. He's halfway out in the field screaming about let's go, and then he has to go to the official and say, hey, that was a hell of a call, wasn't it? Hell of a call. But it's a momentum switch. It's a momentum shifter. And that's what makes that play so dynamic. Yeah, you're right, Jimmy Gumbo. It's going to end up being a trivia question. Well, first off, the name's going to be a trivia question because it's ambush. I know no Saints fan will ever forget that, but that is going to be a good trivia question. The last one there had a surprise onside kick. I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. I know it's about player safety again, because you've got so many people running around and players get hurt on. See, that's illegal play now. That hit on to Bucky Jones. But yeah, it's all designed to increase scoring, and I think if this kickoff allows more guys in that free zone or that landing zone to get a good running start, and if the blockers and the kicking team are that close together, it's almost like once you get past midfield, you're in the clear. There's nobody left, because everyone's going to be bunched in one area. So, what trivia? What was the deficit the Saints overcame to beat the Falcons in their first ever matchup? All right. That was 1967, first season. They only played them one time because there was no NFC West division yet. God. And no, I was not at that game, John Butler. Unless my mom went there with me in utero, I was not at that game.
As Marty Schottenheimer would say, I wasn't even a gleam. Not even a gleam.
I was a gleam. It wasn't. I was born not long after the season ended, because back then the season used to end in early December. So I might have even been born. No, that was the playoffs. Had to be the playoffs. I was born during the playoffs that year because the Ice Bowl was December 31st. So I want to say 10, 17 points maybe. I don't know, 13 points. I don't know. I think it was 27-10 or 27-14 was the final score. Oh, big surprise. Kilmer always replaced Quazzo. They had this idea that Quazzo was going to be the starter and he would struggle, and then they put Kilmer back in. So I have to go back and look at the footage again, but I think it was a 10-point or 14-point deficit that they came from behind. So that's going to be my final answer on that one. 10 to 14-point deficit. What's the question? What's the answer, Matt? Am I right about the score? 21-3 halftime deficit. 27-24. I was off by 10. I knew one of the scores was 27. I just couldn't remember the exact score anymore. Okay, 27-14. They only played them once. They didn't go into. This is the funny thing. Okay, so some of y'all may wonder, and this is going back in time, why were the Saints and the Falcons in the NFC West? It's because of the merger. In 1969, The Saints were in the Coastal League. They were in the Coastal League in '67 as well. They were in the Capital League in Capital
68.
Conference '68. The Coastal Division was Falcons, Saints, I think Baltimore. No. Falcons, Saints, Dallas, Philadelphia. Yeah, and the Giants. I think it was either a 4 or 5 team league. I think that's the league. I think that's what it was, because the Coastal became the NFC East when the merger happened in 1970.
Yeah.
And the Rams and the 49ers were in the same division with either Baltimore or Cleveland, and they had to move they had to create the NFC West, and they had to take 2 teams. They kicked the Saints out of the East and what would be the East along with the Falcons, and they had to move them to the Rams and the 49ers division, because that was the only way you had 4 teams in one division, and that's why that division was the way it was. But yeah, it's because the Colts, the Browns, and the Steelers all moved to the AFC, which would become the AFC, the old AFL, because you had 15 teams in the NFL and you had 11 teams in the AFL, and they had to balance it out. So they moved, so 3 teams went over, or not 9 teams in the AFL, something like that, but they had to balance it out. So you had the same amount of teams in each conference. That was all part of the merger. And I'm just doing that from memory. I don't remember exactly what it was. I just remember that the Saints at one time were in the Dallas Cowboys division. And imagine how different the Saints' history would have been being in the Dallas Cowboys division every week.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, that's a good trivia question. That's
It is.
I'm not surprised Kilmer led the comeback, because that's what Kilmer did.
Yeah. He was Don Strock before Don Strock.
Yeah. Part of the reason why Gary Quazzo got traded next year is because Quazzo was a quarterback that was he had to be on a veteran team. He went to the Vikings, and he led the Vikings to the playoffs in 1870, but they didn't win. But he was that kind of quarterback, whereas Billy Kilmer was the rough and tumble, I can take a beating, and I'll come back and win kind of guy. Yeah, Goodell's had enough of these guys bad mouthing him. Yeah, I know. I tell you what, I don't know when Goodell's going to leave. He's leaving a very wealthy man, but I don't think the league's going to ever come back from what he's done to it, because he's made the league a lot of money. He has made the league a lot of money.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, a lot of the guys, we trash on Goodell a lot, and with good reason. One of the most corrupt men in world history. I said it. But the owners and the executives have made a ton of money too, and just like Goodell doesn't give 2 shits about player safety, the owners don't. Do you really think the owners give a crap about the quality of the game? Given the fact that they are literally making billions of dollars now, hell no. This is exactly what the suits want. And us fans, especially old school hardcore fans like Alan and myself, the type of games that Alan has on in the background, those are going to be things for the history books now. We're never going to get back there.
Well, Sean Payton talked about this when he was interviewing for head coaching jobs back when he was an assistant under Bill Parcells. And Parcells said it. Parcells says, look, there are teams that do not want to win or aren't interested in winning. They're interested only in making money. And they do things that do not produce a winner. And the Bears are a good example of that.
Mhm.
Detroit for a long time was that way. So the league is going to those kind of owners that we find being competitive but not winning. They're not interested in building long term winning. They're interested in winning enough so they can keep making money, and
Yeah.
that's where this is going. Jacksonville's that way.
Mhm.
Um, Oh, Cincinnati is still that way. I don't care what they say with Joe Burrow. He's not going. Paul Brown's cash poor. He's only not Paul Brown, Mike Brown. Brown is cash poor, and this is the kind of he's fine with just making the playoffs. He doesn't have to win any Super Bowl. That's not his goal. His goal is
Yeah.
to stay competitive. You
Yeah,
know.
and yeah, and they'll have the look of a competitive team with Joe Burrow. They'll keep signing Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow is one of the most marketable players in the NFL. So there's your cash cow right there. And yeah, and again, end of story.
And for all the crap that Yale Benson and Mickey Loomis and Dennis Allen are getting, they are interested in winning. They want to win
Yeah.
because they're a small market team. They need that. They need to have um, a winning product. This is one of the reasons why they don't blow the whole thing up and start over
Hmm.
because they know we blow this up and we start losing for a while. We don't have the corporate sponsors who are going to buy the suites and who are going to support, give us the cash that we need when the fans aren't going to the games, when we have 40,000 people in the stands, and we're not season tickets sold out every year. We don't have that kind of support to ride that out. So we have to be competitive every year. So their rebuilds have to be this way, where
Hmm.
they are doing the slow rebuild, where they're trying to remain competitive, win 9 or 10 games, um, but get in position to get younger, get better players too. So that's the tough part about this for Loomis because you're winning enough though that you're not going to be in the top 10, getting the top 10 draft picks. Um, so you end up signing veteran quarterbacks because you're not going to be in a position to draft the franchise guy. You can't afford that 3-13 season. You might get one unintentionally, but you really want to try to avoid that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's the hard part about trying to juggle all this stuff. Um, Last thing before we get on about the Bayou Blitz and so forth tomorrow. Free agency. Do you expect to see any more moves by the Saints prior to next probably next month when we really start focusing on the draft? Do you expect to see any movement maybe this weekend? Maybe a couple players before the draft. Do you expect to see anything like that?
If we do, it won't be anything significant, Alan. It would be
Oh, there
players.
was one thing I wanted to ask you, and I forgot. I just remembered it.
Oh, okay. Then I'll
Sorry
make this answer
about it.
quick. It won't be anything splashy. Won't be a big name. Won't be probably a starting caliber player. If they sign anybody, it'll be for special teams, back part of the depth chart. The only starting caliber players we might see, this part wouldn't surprise me, is if a Trey Turner or an Andrus Pete were brought back in. And I think Pete, they might have to wait for a little bit because Pete has visited a couple teams. I think he still has feelers out there. I think any of those type of signings would probably not come until either right before the draft or immediately following, between the draft and veteran minicamp.
One thing I did want to ask you, and I just remembered it when we were talking about free agency. The Chiefs traded Snead, their best corner, this past weekend, but they only traded him for what, a third round pick? I think it
Third and
was.
fifth, I believe.
Uh, what? Do you, okay. what does that do to Marshawn Lattimore's market if they wanted to trade him?
To me, it all but dries up the Marshawn Lattimore trade market. If we are to believe the Saints at what they say, or what they've hinted, and saying that we're not going to trade Marshawn Lattimore just to get him off of the roster, then you got to think that a third round, and I know L'Jarius Sneed was a Pro Bowler, but in my opinion, he isn't nearly the caliber of cornerback that Marshawn Lattimore is. Sneed is a good player, a Pro Bowl player. Lattimore is a legitimate shutdown cornerback. And if you're not going to get a third round pick for him, or if you're not going to get higher than a third round pick for him, I think the Saints are smart enough to just hold on to him, at least until, if they get off to a poor start next year, maybe they deal him before the trade deadline. Because at that point you're talking a different salary cap situation, with what his cap hit would be. But this year we already know that Marshawn Lattimore can't be officially dealt until after June 1st. Otherwise, it's just a humongous cap hit to the Saints. So I think New Orleans is just content to stand pat with such a talented player. Whatever disharmony exists, between Lattimore and coaches or Lattimore and front office, it's not nearly serious enough where they have to move him. That's just my view, and they sure as hell aren't going to move him for a L'Jarius Sneed type of deal that the Chiefs got in return.
Absolutely, and that was my thing. I said, look, if you're going to trade for Lattimore, you're trying to trade him for a high pick. You want a first round pick. You would even be willing to eat some of that cap, or give up a pick for another team to take some of that cap hit if you think you can get a first round pick for him this year. And you're only moving him because you're getting high value, not
Right.
because you've got to get rid of him. You have to get him off the roster. This is not a Michael Thomas situation. This is not a picking players at random, junior Gillette or somebody that you've got to get off this roster because they're poisoning the locker room, or you just need to get rid of them. Lattimore, every indication I hear, Lattimore is just soured on some of the things that happened last year. So you kind of have to sell him on things are going to be different. I don't know what that's going to take. I don't know what soured him on the situation, but it's not at the point where he is going to pull a Bobby Hebert and sit out rather than come in. It's not at that point. It's just that he's frustrated. He's frustrated by the losing. He's frustrated by some of the things that's happened. Maybe even with the relationship he's had with some of the position coaches. Don't know the full details behind it, but he wants to hear if there's going to be changes. So I think Allen can sell him on that. And then if the season isn't getting any better, then you can possibly trade him after before the trade deadline for a pick next year where his cap issue is a lot less. I just, yeah, I agree. You're going to improve the defense. You're going to count on him. I think that would be a big sell. I think a big sell is just him feeling important to the team again.
Yeah,
I really do. I think he may have felt disrespected last year. I don't know. I don't know the full details. Just the comments that people like Nick Underhill have muttered and started to say and then backed away from it. Some people have speculated that's why the girl Brooke is no longer part of NOF because she broke a story about this and they didn't want that story out there because it must have been told off the record. Whatever. So That's going to be the thing I'm watching, and I'm going to be watching that after the draft and see what happens, because I think that's where the Lattimore stuff happens. Bob, what do you have going on in the Bayou Bliss tomorrow night?
We're going Thursday this week. Brendan's on the road. He's actually going to be up my direction, but he's not going to be sure of his Wi-Fi situation. So we're going to do Thursday. Hopefully by then, those of you that do follow, myself individually or all of us at the Saints News Network, we've had some publishing issues really since late last week. We're getting those, without getting into detail, we're getting those ironed out as quickly as we can. I believe John Hendricks was finally able to break through that impenetrable wall, IT wall, and get something published tonight. So maybe I'll have some luck tomorrow, or within the next day or two, because I have 10 draft profiles that are already written, just waiting to be copied and published. I have a whole notebook of draft profiles that I had been doing and working on since December, that are waiting to be published. So, if you followed me for a few years, you know those are coming. And Brendan and I are going to be talking about the draft, offensive line prospects. I'm hoping Brendan doesn't ask me any more about Goodell and the rule changes. Because Allen and Sean Williams before them, they know that every time Goodell is brought up, it's a risk that I'm going to go off, to a point of no return, and either get myself fired or get multiple shows taken off of the air. So hopefully I could talk Brendan into avoiding any kind of rule or Goodell conversation. But yeah, I mean, we're going to talk more about Ramczyk, Lattimore, Willie Gay, how he's going to fit into the defense, and what that kind of move might mean for the defensive draft strategy. Everybody's talking about offensive line strategy, and I get it. That's a big one. But are they going to make moves at wide receiver in the draft? If so, where? Are they going to make moves at linebacker still, defensive line? Those are the kind of things we're going to start to delve into more and more in the coming weeks.
I would not be surprised to see the Saints take a receiver at 45. I really wouldn't. Because there's some quality receivers you can get in that second round, especially if they can figure out a way to get back into third and maybe take, I don't know, defensive tackle or, maybe a defensive end in that third round. So, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking at as well.
Yep.
In my little mock draft, I took a receiver in the second round, so those are the kind of things I like to see. Just remember when we're talking about this is 80. This is a way back game. This is, I think, 1981. I got in here. So there's a way back game.
Ricky Jackson versus Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. Yep. So, and I think this game ends up being 10-3 or something. Saints win. If this is the game, I think it is. Let's see what year. Saints versus the Giants. I don't know. It's cut me off. But I think this is 81. Yeah, I think if this might be 84, but it looks closer to 81. So anyway, yeah, I'll go back and look. But if it's 81, it's a 10-3 game. Saints win this one. If it's 84, they get their ass kicked. That's the way I can put it. But anyway, yeah, tell Brendan, said our best, if this, let's see. Look at this team. That's Dave Wilson. Whoo, God, that's awful. Stan Brock. This is the New Jerseys. This is 80. This is 86. This is 86. Because look at the jerseys. They have the state logo on the sleeves. So yeah, this is 1986. So yeah, the Saints get their ass kicked because this is the Super Bowl Giants team.
Yeah.
Babe Laufenberg.
Wow.
Babe Laufenberg is warming up.
I
Oh my
forgot.
God.
Forgot
Babe
he played for
Laufenberg.
New Orleans.
Yes, he played for a brief time in New Orleans. He's more known as a Dallas Cowboys quarterback,
Yeah.
and he finished his career with the Chargers.
Yes.
But yeah, that's nice blocking. Yeah, yep, yeah, because yeah, this is definitely 86. Okay, all right, yeah, they get their ass kicked. That's all I can say. They really do. Yeah, they stood no shot in winning this game. And the next time they play him is the Payne game, which is 88. They beat him in 87 because Lawrence Taylor is injured, but they lose again in 88. So is that guy like a mafioso or what? What the hell was
Sure
that?
does.
Some dude with a big thick mustache and sunglasses just made a call. Vinny, we got a problem. We need somebody to take care of this. Yeah. So, all right. Anyway, all this time I've been wasting my joke. So I was going to say, Brendan Boylan, remember, he's down his street or up yours. So, anyway, Bob, thank you for joining us this evening. Yeah, I can't believe this game. I was just picking some Giants games at random, and yeah, to see that one. Guys, be sure and check the Bayou Blitz out tomorrow night. It's cutting me off. Famous last words. You right. Yeah, guys, check the Bayou Blitz Thursday night, not tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Raul leg break. And as always, we'll be back next week talking the draft. I'd like to get in next week and start going into some of the top players outside of offensive linemen and probably Dallas Turner and Jared Verse. Surprise picks that could be in the first round that the Saints could possibly look at, especially in when we get to the second round around 45. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time under the dome. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.